What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
What's up, Fantasy Points? We are back for the DFS cage match, week 7. If you're not familiar, we are going to draft teams for on DraftKings. So it's just going to be a 3-man contest. We're going to do a snake draft, each selecting players until we have full teams. It's always myself and Jake Tribbey. We have a rotating guest drafting with us as well, and we'll be drafting for charity. So each of us chooses a charity ahead of time, and the winner, Fantasy Points, will pay $100 to the charity of the winner's choice. So we'll go over those charities. But first, our guest this week is Jakob Sanderson. Some people say he's the smartest person in Canada. I'm not sure if that's true. He has never said it himself, but I've heard it elsewhere that he is the smartest person in Canada. I thought I should bring in a big gun here because I'm on a 4-week winning streak right now. Seems like almost impossible to bring me down. So I thought I got to go international and bring in a big brain from Canada. Jakob, do you think that you have what it takes to take me down?
I hope so, man. This can be fun. This will be an absolute blast. Excited to do stuff for charity, excited to make some picks, and excited to hopefully bring you down. Clearly one Jake on this program has been unwilling to do that. So hopefully adding another Jake to the mix, we can get that done. Maybe
if the Jakes team up, you can get it done. Because Jake Tribbey by himself, certainly not capable of taking down this contest. Tribbey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. A lesser man may have been mentally broken by an 0-6 record in the cage so far, but I'm coming in with my head held high, ready to once again draft the highest projected team and hopefully not finish in third place.
Best of luck with that.
If you had Ryan on last week, and of course I do Dynasty Points every week with Ryan and Tom and Lucas, and we have a weekly picks game where we have to pick outside of a certain amount at each position, and I'm currently leading our game by 120 points. So Ryan sucks at this type of situation, and you guys massively upgraded this week.
Tougher competitor than Ryan. Yeah, Ryan couldn't get it done, so we thought we had to go for the big guns here. As I said, we are going to be drafting for charity, so we'll go quickly over our charities here. The charity that I chose last week was the Mana Food Bank, helping out with Hurricane Helene relief in Western North Carolina. So $100 going to the Mana Food Bank. Jake, your charity, which it has been your charity every week because Jake and I kind of made the agreement, we can go against it if we want to at some point, but we decided that, if we lose, you can just go back to the same charity. So Jake has been going back to Friends of North Augusta. Friends of North Augusta. Jake, do you want to tell me a little bit about Friends of North Augusta?
Yeah, I will continue running it back with Friends of North Augusta Animals until I get a dub for them. Great charity.
Sad dog that's just not getting any money because you can't make picks.
Poor dog. Look at this guy.
That dog just knows, you don't draft the optimal. You draft on vibes, and that's how you win. That's how you win in the cage. And yet I keep drafting the optimal and, keep taking L's. But they're a great local charity. They do I live in the Augusta area. They do a ton of great work for the animals of Augusta, who, obviously need it now more than ever, given the hurricane and, all that went along with that. So hopeful that I can eke out a win this week for the Friends of North Augusta Animals.
Eventually, you're just going to send them money at some point one day. Yeah.
I did promise last week, if I go 0-17 or 0-18, if I do the impossible, $500 of my money to Friends of North Augusta. 500. So
that's a good.
You have my word.
Yeah, I like that. Jakob, you chose Vancouver Aboriginal Friendship Center Society with center spelled the Canadian way here. Jakob, do you want to tell me a little bit about this society?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a local charity for me. So I'm in Vancouver, and it provides number of different programs, from a 24-hour emergency housing shelter to youth programs, mental health resources, resources for people struggling with addictions for Indigenous folks living in urban Vancouver.
Very cool. Very cool. And then mine, I'm going, I haven't done it yet. The rescue that we got my dog from, and I am obsessed with my dog. We don't even know his age, anywhere from 4 to 8 years old when we got him. We've had him for over 4 years now. We got him from Healing Hearts, which doesn't say anything specifically in the About Me page about specifically having dogs that have had health issues. So I kind of thought that was a bigger part of what they do, because every dog that I've ever met from Healing Hearts has had some sort of health issue, including my dog, who had hip issues. He had just had double hip surgery when we got him. I think they generally target animals that have had some health issues. But either way, just a really good dog rescue or animal rescue that we got my dog from here locally in the Twin Cities, doing some great work. So Healing Hearts is my choice this week. All right, that is going to do it for the charities. Let's go on and review our teams from last week. And Jacob, I know I didn't give you a ton of time ahead to look at Ryan's team, but you'll have an opportunity to take a look at Ryan's team in a second. We always start though with Jake's team, because we always start with the last place team, which just always happens to be Jake's team here. So Jake, how do you feel about your last place team this week? Look at all these snowflakes.
It looks like I'm back in Winnipeg.
Yeah, I will note that I have not finished last every week, so wanted to correct our lovely host Neil on that. Did grab a couple second place finishes in there, but Lamar I thought was an overall very strong pick in a matchup. I was hoping for a bit more of a ceiling performance, some more fireworks. Obviously, Derrick Henry really ended up dominating in that game. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm still a little iffy on the process. I think in a 3-man, he projected quite well, but when it's a split backfield like what we have in Detroit, the upside for a 30-point game just really isn't there with Gibbs as much as it is with a lot of these other running backs who have a much clearer path to say 25 touches in a game. But the red zone usage was also quite frustrating. I believe he had an end zone target that was pretty well covered. Yeah. Tony Pollard, I think, was pretty much my only player outside of the Bucs defense that actually ended up running pretty well and kind of seeing the environment that I wanted to. Obviously got a little bailed out with the Tajay Spears injury, but still projected well regardless in a strong matchup. Wide receiver, I think, Mooney and Tolbert were pretty strong values. Dallas just did not show up at all. I mean, that was absolutely brutal. And then Dontavian Wicks got hurt and Christian Watson was active, which was something that I just really didn't think was particularly possible on when we were drafting last Wednesday. I thought maybe a 5 or 10% chance that Watson plays.
Should have listened to his dad, not Jesse Morse.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, instead I listened to Dr. Morse and was left in the dust there. Jake Ferguson, sort of the same deal. We expected fireworks from Dallas. I mean, it was such a good spot for the Dallas passing game, and we just got absolutely nothing there. And Amari Cooper was the pick at the time that I was the most concerned with, because Deshaun Watson is playing like the worst quarterback of my lifetime. At the same time, the usage has obviously been there with Cooper. If only he was on the Bills last week, maybe we could have gotten a decent score out of him. But yeah, not a great team. I think pretty clearly my worst team of the season.
Jahmyr Gibbs only put up 12.1 fantasy points in a game in which Detroit scored 47 points. Did David Montgomery, I honestly don't remember. Did David Montgomery do anything like that? That seems bad for a running back who you paid a lot of money for to only get 12 fantasy points in a 47-point game for Detroit.
Montgomery had 2 touchdowns. He scored He scored 21, but it's just so tough when they're splitting the red zone work. It's a slight lean toward Montgomery on, inside the 10 carries, but when it's basically a 50-50 backfield split, you're not going to see as many upside performances as these guys as you will from, especially like a Tony Pollard this week, who will have a monopoly over backfield work.
One final question, Jake, about your team. So Lamar Jackson was your first overall pick. Obviously a great spot with Washington's defense. Do you have any regrets? If you could do it all over again, would you go back to Lamar Jackson, or do you have regrets about taking Lamar with your first pick last week?
I just don't really remember any running backs or wide receivers particularly standing out more than Lamar relative to his position. I think, I think I'd probably still lean towards Lamar as my first overall pick because it was such an awesome spot. And then, all my other picks, I do regret at least a little bit though.
Okay. Now, Jacob, I'll give you an opportunity to review Ryan's team from last week to whatever extent you want to. If you have thoughts on the team,
Sure.
How do you feel about this team?
So, some guys here that were definitely part of my pool. Deontay was like an obvious cash game play last week. That was nice. Love was someone that I played in my stuff. You take Saquon Barkley, who's been the RB1, I think, on the year going into last week. Always a tough break that he ends up going for 7 points in a spot where he's a massive favorite. I don't know how you would predict that. Henry, massive smash spot. He gets it. Yeah, McLeod, I think somewhat similar to like Mooney stuff. I don't play cash games. I play tournaments. So like when I'm seeing like Mooney and I'm seeing McLeod, like immediately my thing was like, wow, those were fish plays. But in this context, they weren't. You know, McConkey, I think a bad run out where he leaves with 2 different injuries and then comes back in the game both times, but was clearly targeted and I think would have paid off. I'd be fascinated to hear the Javonte pick in a 3-man context, but maybe you guys didn't have as much info on like the Eckler and the Bucky and some of those guys that were a real staple of the cash game lineups by the time we actually get around to Sunday.
Yeah, I think we were missing a lot of context at the time that we made these picks, so it didn't seem that nuts at the time taken. It was one of the top like point per dollar projections at the time we did the draft, as I recall. One thing that is pretty interesting about this is, so Ryan has Jordan Love completely unstacked and he goes completely off, nearly 27 fantasy points. Jake had Dontavian Wicks, who put up 2 fantasy points. And then I also had Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft, and all of our receivers for the Packers kind of failed. I mean, Jaden Reed was almost okay, but largely failed, whereas Jordan Love went completely off, just throwing multiple touchdowns to Romeo Dobbs, threw a touchdown to Christian Watson. So kind of funny that we had 3 pass catchers. So as far as that went, the naked Jordan Love worked out really well for Ryan, but the rest didn't quite get there for him. And then my team, of course, the best team, as always. We always do my team last because it's always the team that won once again last week. Spencer Rattler, and I got laughed at. Good
for you to go take Bijan Robinson like a real man. Nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I did. I took Bijan Robinson with the 101. He was actually my first pick, and I did have some hesitation about it because he had the hamstring injury the week prior. I was a little bit nervous about it, so I made the pick, and I was like, "Ooh, I don't know if I love it. Like, I'm a little bit scared to take him." But he was, I think, the best point per dollar play on the slate, so I just leaned into it.
There's a lock button for me, even in terms.
Was he in DFS?
Yeah.
You just loved. Was that in part because the ownership was reduced because of the injury scare? Or what?
It was. I mean, he was owned, but he wasn't as owned as much as I thought he should be owned. Right, like a lot of that stuff was going to Chuba. Then there was everybody spending down on Eckler and Bucky. So it was a spot where like I thought he should have been like 50-60% owned given price and talent and matchup. Yeah. And I mean, like he doesn't even really get like Algier gets there and Bijan still gets there. Right, they end up combining for like 43 DraftKings points. So. Yeah,
together they were awesome. Both of them. I mean, Bijan was, I'd say he got there at 6,625, sure, but he could have done so much more without Algier cutting into it. So yeah, Bijan was my 101 pick. I don't remember exactly what I did at my next pick. I think actually Drake London was my 2-3 turn pick. It was Drake London and Jaden Reed, I believe. And London, I would say got there, did well enough. Reed was okay, not amazing. I think he also left with an injury at one point. Sent it back to Jake with the opportunity to draft Zay Flowers for the stack, and he just passed on it. And at some point, Zay Flowers against Washington's defense, just a little bit too good to pass up. So I feel good about my wide receiver choices. Cortland Sutton was obviously worked out well. Was somebody who was borderline playable in tournaments, but I took him with my final pick because he just worked out in terms of the dollar amount I had left. I went there with Cortland Sutton and he scored a touchdown. So matchup was pretty good. He ends up getting there with the touchdown. Was not my favorite pick. Chuba Hubbard just projected well, point per dollar, so that one worked out. Tucker Kraft did not work out. I was really excited about Tucker Kraft last week with the week he had the week prior. Man, I thought he was going to be awesome. Saints defense lucked out with a defensive touchdown there. Overall, feel okay about the team. Obviously it got there, but I actually don't think it was my best draft of the year. I think it ended up getting there, but was not that incredible. So this is week 7. So it's an odd week, which means Jake is going to go first between the two of us. But Jacob, you get to choose your draft spot. Have you decided where you want to go this week?
Okay, that's exciting. I honestly had not given it that much thought here. But you know what? I'm gonna be an alpha, and I get the choice. I'm gonna take it out and see what we got. I'm gonna give myself the first pick.
Love it. All right, yeah, just go with your gut. Take your favorite pick.
Absolutely.
So are you choosing that in part because do you have a lean where you want to go with your first pick? Or
I do. I definitely have a guy who I think is gonna hopefully lift me to first place on his shoulders this week.
All right. Well, who is it?
All right. I'll just take Justin Jefferson. Best game environment of the slate to me. in a pass funnel Detroit defense in a game where I expect the Vikings to be missing their starting running back. I think this will be a spot off the bye. Kevin O'Connell will just be dreaming up all of the incredible ways he can scheme the ball to Justin Jefferson. I'm hopeful that he scores 45 this week, and I don't even have to make any other picks. I can just be snowflakes all around him.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly in his bag. Any concerns about CeeDee Lamb? Kind of a disappointment last week in the same matchup. We all thought CeeDee Lamb was going to go off against Detroit, and is that correct? I think he was a disappointment.
Yeah, it wasn't great. He could have got there. He had like 14 targets, but it was pretty underwhelming. I just think that there's a massive chasm between how Kevin O'Connell is able to scheme Justin Jefferson open versus what Zach Taylor and Mike McCarthy, where I think with Chase and with Lamb, it's a little bit more of a circumstance of like, if the defense decides that they don't want to let those guys beat them, that they kind of just don't. So it's just a little bit more static. Whereas I think KOC is so much more intent on finding ways to win through Justin Jefferson that I don't know that there is really a way to take him out unless you just have a corner who's able to stand up to him one-on-one. And, that corner is not on the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, that's definitely true. No Aiden Hutchinson this week either for Detroit, so the matchup gets even a little bit easier for the Vikings offense. Yeah, I like the pick. Jake, do you know who you want to go with your first round pick?
Yeah, I think I do. I'm a little concerned, very, very small amount of concern that this player could miss, but at a certain point, what do I have to lose? I'm defending an 0-6 record, so I'm taking Malik Neighbors. It's I
get those goosebumps every time.
Things seem like they're moving well with his overall concussion progress. It seems like he's on pace to play this week. Obviously, we know New York should have to throw plenty against Philadelphia, and while it's not a particularly appealing on paper matchup, I mean, Neighbors' volume has just been so absurdly good. The air yards are there. The targets are there. He's an awesome player on film. I mean, Neil's got his game logs on the screen. If I could even get a mediocre game out of Malik Neighbors, I think I'd be pretty happy, especially at 7,500. If he plays in his usual role, he should be $1,000 more expensive.
Yeah, hard to argue with Malik Neighbors. All right, so it's my pick, and I have not decided who I want yet. Do we know officially, is Brian Robinson officially out? Do we know what his status is? Because I'm seeing
he returned to practice. Let me check.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, he was limited today.
All right, so that's scares me off of the top point per dollar projection just a little bit there. I am working under the assumption that we're not going to have Jonathan Brooks yet this week, so I might think about somebody there. All right, give me 1 second.
No, they said the earliest they'll be back is week 9, I think is what Canal
Okay.
said.
Good. You know what? Screw it. I'm just going to do what I want to do. Once again, I'm going to just say screw the projections, screw the point per dollar projections, and I'm going to go for the mini little game stat correlation. I'm going to take Deontay Johnson and Terry McLaurin. Yeah,
there you go.
That's what I'm going to do because I think it's fun. I think that's just a game that could go completely off. Here's another thing that I do, Jacob, that you probably don't need to do in a 3-man, but I do it anyway, is I always just correlate my lineups as though it is a tournament because I'm so tournament pilled. That's the only way I know how to build. But I like the game. I like both players individually. We do have the Q tag on Deontay Johnson, but from what I understand, it was just a vet rest day for Deontay. So not
tagged.
Yeah. And both, mid-priced in a great matchup. I think this Carolina-Washington game could just go completely off with two really bad defenses, and honestly not bad offenses with Andy Dalton there for Carolina. So yeah, I like that. I think that's the correlation I want to lean into, and I'll send it back to Jake for your second pick.
Yeah. So I think I want to look at running back here. Things are fairly flat at wide receiver, although there are still a few good options. Tight end's always a disaster. I think I'm going to go with Tony Pollard here. The on-paper rushing matchup isn't great, and neither is the projected game script here against Buffalo. But I think the key thing with Pollard is, one, obviously Tajay Spears is not expected to play, and the RB3 here is Julius Chestnut, who earned 3 snaps after Spears went out. Pollard was at a 90% snap share. after Spears went out. But the real key is that Buffalo funnels everything underneath. A 24% target share allowed to opposing backfields. Pollard should get peppered with targets here, assuming Will Levis doesn't turn the ball over every single play. So he's going to project really, really well. I imagine he'll be quite chalky for DFS, although I do question the tournament upside in a game where we expect, some serious blowout risk for Tennessee. But in a 3-man format, I really like it.
Nice.
Yeah, hard to argue with it. Just looking at like schedule adjusted. Am I pulling this up? I'm trying to pull this over to the right screen. Schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed page. And I don't know if this is updated for. Looks like it is updated for this week. Actually, the best possible matchup in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. Buffalo has been really bad against running backs, and as you alluded to, mostly against the pass. 7.7 fantasy points over expectation through the receiving game to running backs. Just a smash spot. Certainly something that could benefit Tony Pollard, and then obviously not having Tyjae Spears. You had a post that, of course, went a little bit viral. Jake, your post was retweeted by 32. What was the name?
32 beat writers.
32 beat writers. Yeah.
Retweeted. It was my first ever 32 beat writers retweet. I was very excited. Obviously, I immediately told my girlfriend, my mom. I really felt like I made it, so I slept quite soundly last night.
That's big.
That's funny because I told you and you were like, what? I was like, oh, wow, Jake's getting retweeted by big accounts. And you were like, what are you talking about?
You did break the news to me.
Yeah, it was fun.
Felt good.
I'm jealous. I've never been retweeted by 32 beat writers. I've never had a tweet, to be honest, that I think is worthy of being retweeted because I mostly just shit post, but pretty cool to see. All right, back to Jacob. So Justin Jefferson down to 51.87 per player. You get back-to-back picks now.
So first pick, I'm going to do Chuba Hubbard. I think he will end up as the highest point per dollar running back on the slate, but we'll see. Pending injury stuff for other folks. He saw his highest snap rate of the season this past week. He was up over 80% of the work. He's looked fantastic. Honestly, the interior offensive lineman investments that they made in Carolina are killing it. He's destroying in yards before contact. I think that's where he excels, is in terms of speed, pace, vision. His missed tackles force numbers are actually fairly pedestrian, but killing in RYOE over attempt, killing in yards before contact. And he's getting a lot of involvement in the passing game. In order to counteract the Justin Jefferson big spend and to give myself some flexibility, since I don't know what you guys are going to be doing with your picks, I'm going to do the grossest thing imaginable. I will take Juju Smith-Schuster and his $4,000 salary to give myself some savings. Playing the Rashee Rice adjacent role, I think he can get me 5 catches for 45 yards and some salary flexibility.
That was even grosser than I thought it was going to be, but I also get it. I was envisioning Jatavian Sanders maybe, but Juju Smith-Schuster.
There was a few cheap wide receivers that were percolating in my mind, but the Juju point per dollar projection just was sitting there glowing to me.
Yeah, no, it looks pretty good. Hard to argue with that one. Back to
it's pretty easy to argue with that one.
Well, because if Juju Smith-Schuster, yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah, really bad pick there. Juju Smith-Schuster. 4,000. The price makes sense there. Jake, up for you, your third round pick.
Yeah, so this is another tricky one. I think I want to go running back here again. I think the other players that I'm kind of eyeing will likely make it back to me. I'm not sure if this guy will. So I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker here. The workload for Kenneth Walker has just been so damn good as of late. Fourth in XFP, third in fantasy points per game on the season. Since week 4, only Alvin Kamara has more targets. No running back has more routes over the full season. Walker is the second most efficient running back on a per snap basis when his team is trailing. I mean, no one saw this coming early in the season. Walker is seeing a ton of targets, and obviously he's a bell cow on the ground. So the workload is really, really great. This is a high total game, could be a potential shootout environment. And like I said, should be involved. Whether or not Seattle gets ahead or falls behind should be a lot of Kenneth Walker touches.
Nice.
Yep. I like that call. All right. You know what? I'm again gonna just take who I want to take. I feel really good about Brock Bowers this week against the Rams.
Nice.
So I think I'm just gonna lean into it. Brock Bowers against the Rams. Worry about the values I need later. I'm also taking mid range, so I think I'm doing okay. Now I have another pick here, 51.33 left per player. Do we think James Cook returns? I don't know. All right. Running back is kind of tough this week. As I'm looking at it closer, it's like, man, you kind of have to pay up a little bit, I think. You know what? I'm going to take a chance on Ray Davis, even in a sort of tough matchup here. 5,200. I think he's earned himself a bigger role than he had earlier in the year. Even if James Cook comes back, I think Ray Davis remains involved. So I think 5,200, I feel okay about that. Allows me to pay up a little bit more elsewhere. I don't love the matchup. I do think Tennessee's defense is pretty solid, but I still think the role is good enough. The offense for Buffalo, and maybe, Amari Cooper really opens things up even more for this offense. So I think the price is right there on Ray Davis. So I'll lean into that. I want to hear your thoughts, you guys' thoughts on the Ray Davis pick, actually, before we send it back to Jake. Is it too Galaxy Brain in a 3-man?
Well, I think it's a risk reward pick, right? I mean, if Cook is out, he's going to be probably the best points per dollar running back on the slate, or at least in the top 3-4. He actually had a couple like long down and distance snaps that were mixed in along the way last night, and a couple 2-minute drill snaps. Like he just has a locked in role. So phenomenal upside pick there. If Cook plays, like, then it's not like meaningfully different than like probably like the Tyler Algier value or something like that. So, probably not a guy you draft, but I don't know. I think Cook's probably pretty genuinely 50-50.
Yeah, that's kind of how it feels to me also.
Yeah, totally line up with Jacob there. Really hope James
Cook it's a
plays,
dead pick
that he can derail your
right.
Yeah. Not going to be completely dead, but obviously it will be a pick that I regret if James Cook ultimately plays, but not like the end of the world at that price tag. All right, Jake, back to you for your I made both of mine. So back to you for your 4th round pick.
All right. Let's see. I've got 4,800 remaining. Need a little bit of value here, and it is a tough week for value. Man, I do not want to take Jatavion Sanders, though. Tremble could play, and Tremble would really derail the Jatavion value, which is tricky. I'm going to go with a somewhat value running back and round out my flex here with Chase Brown. The workload last week was juiced after Zach Moss fumbled. And I dove into our projections, and, we're still, relatively light compared to last week on both his carry share, his target share. We're not projecting last week's workload, and he's still a top 10 value. And maybe the coaches have, decide this is going to be a Chase Brown game. We're going to see what Chase Brown can do. Even if he can't, or even if they don't, at 5,900, it's still a pretty reasonable value. So to me, he kind of feels like maybe a slightly more expensive version of Ray Davis with a little bit less risk.
Yep, I think that makes sense. Don't hate that pick. What do we think of the Cleveland defense? I still can't decide. Like, I'm still always scared of the Cleveland defense because in name at least, they seem like a really good defense. I think they've been okay so far this year, but I think there's a general sentiment that they might just quit at some point. Do we think now that they traded Amari Cooper, is the Cleveland defense gonna stop playing at some point?
Yeah, I think that they're actually fine. It's just that they are constantly on the field. And they're constantly on the field in unfavorable game script. And it's just like, you kind of watched this with the Jets defense last year, where it's like they just kind of got worn down over the course of the season, where even if you had a good unit, and the one thing with Cleveland too, even last year, is they weren't actually a very good red zone defense, and they didn't actually force that many turnovers. So, if you just keep gifting the ball to the other team in favorable game environment, they're eventually going to convert. And so I think the Cleveland defense is good. But I don't think they're quite where they were last year, where it was like a hard line of void.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think especially for opposing rushers, I mean, they run so much single high, that brings an extra player down into the box and should lead to very strong run defense. And we have seen that in previous seasons. This year, though, they're actually a slightly positive schedule adjusted matchup for opposing running backs on the ground.
Like
So
a lot of that script. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is sort of an interesting development with the Cleveland defense.
Interesting. All right, Jacob, we are back to you with back-to-back picks now.
All right. So first one, I think that there is a lot of good quarterback plays the slate, but I think there's one that has potential to really separate. I'll take Jade Daniels here in the dream matchup of dream matchups against the Carolina Panthers, who just don't play any defense at all. Daniels' scramble rate, this feels like the kind of game he could have, 250, 100, and 4 or 5 total touchdowns. So I'm going to go with him here. And then I'm gonna live a little bit in the, let's see, how bad is my salary situation? Pretty bad. All right,
46.80 left per play. You do have your tight end in your defense, which should be bringing down the cost a bit, depending on who you go with tight end, I guess.
That's what I'm trying to debate here. I'm trying to do some math on the fly. Okay, I'm gonna leave tight end open, I think, just in case I need to really spend down later. Let's see if I can get in kind of a decent enough. Is there a running back value? There's one I'm really tempted to take, but it might be like a literal 0. Okay, I'm just gonna risk it. I'll do Chai Chandler here at 5,600. I think I was pretty tempted to go with Tyler Goodson, to be honest, because I don't think Jonathan Taylor plays this week, but I'm like 40-60 on Jonathan Taylor. I think Aaron Jones is like a real long shot to play this week. So I'll go with Chandler here. I hate everything about the matchup, but I do think he's very likely to see, 70% snaps, majority of high value touches, and hopefully get there on receiving. And if he's able to just find the end zone, then you survive in a game that I haven't checked the over-unders, but I can't imagine this doesn't have the highest total on the slate. So I'll take Chandler here to get some salary savings.
I don't think we've run into this issue affecting any decisions yet, but I didn't tell you our rule for if a player that you draft is ruled out, then you can swap them out, like do just a 1v1 swap, I think is what we ended up landing on. So if you do take a questionable player and they get ruled out, you will have the opportunity to swap that player out.
Interesting. All right.
And I was advocating for somebody had suggested this on Twitter that we could do a 2v2 with the defense if you wanted to, but I don't think that we have enacted that rule. I think that we've stuck with just 1v1. So if you do draft a player that is ultimately ruled out, you can make a 1v1 swap. Obviously the same rules apply. You can't take any player that is on somebody else's roster, but otherwise, yeah, you can make that swap. So just FYI. What your thoughts on Aaron Jones? Is that do you feel strongly that he sits out because of the Cam Akers trade? Like, is that enough? Are you reading the tea leaves there, or is it based on reporting?
Well, just the initial reporting was that it was going to be a couple weeks. Okay. And there's only been a bye week. He didn't practice at all today. Originally it was a hip. He also got listed with a hamstring today instead of the hip. Yep. Hamstrings are usually multiple weeks unless you're Travis Etienne, I suppose. And Aaron Jones is just, I love Aaron Jones, one of my favorite players of all time. Kind of an old dude. He's not really the guy I'm betting on coming back earlier than an injury. And especially given how much the team relies on him, are they going to rush as a 5-0 team? Are they going to rush their 29-year-old running back sooner than he can actually play? That seems incredibly unlikely to me. So I think he's very unlikely to play this week. I would probably bet he even misses next week.
Yep. I like that call. All right, Jake, back to you for your 5th round pick.
Yeah, I really like that Ty Chandler pick. I need some value at wide receiver, and it is really thin. I mean, looking through our top values, you see guys like Cedric Tillman and Jalen Coker.
You wish you had Juju Smith-Schuster available.
That's right, yeah.
Well, I'm going to take Juju Smith-Schuster if he was actually good. Noah Brown at just 4,000. Noah Brown, believe it or not, guys, led the Commanders in target share, expected fantasy points, air yardage share in week 6. Over the full season, no player has earned better per route usage on the Commanders than Noah Brown. He scored over 22 fantasy points in 43% of the games last season where he earned a route share over 20%. He's a really good player. He joined the team on August 29th, had a groin injury. So there is, he hasn't had a route share over about 62% this season. There's still plenty of room for his role to grow. And I think he's clearly better than Olamide, Zacchaeus, and, the other receivers they have on this team behind McLaurin. It's obviously an incredible matchup. So I really like the salary savings you can get with Noah Brown. And I think there's, upside for a big performance as well.
Sounds like he's likely to play, even though he's limited in practice. Sounds like it was the same, just reading the notes here. Was the same thing last week. He ended up had 8 targets in that game, caught 4 of them, 58 yards. Yeah, I can't really argue with Noah Brown. Was not on my radar, but another $4,000 receiver. Great matchup with Carolina. Also great potential leverage on both me and Jacob. Jacob takes Jaden. I guess he'll score with Jaden Daniels, so not necessarily leverage there, but I have Terry McLaurin. So if Noah Brown goes off, then I am going to be in some trouble.
Well, who knows? Maybe they run Noah Brown Wildcat, and he takes over the Jaden Daniels role.
That's really good. Yeah,
there you go.
You could hurt us both with your Noah Brown. Yeah. All right, where do I want to go here? So Jacob stole my quarterback, which I thought was a little bit rude since I took Terry McLaurin, just like went ahead and took Jaden Daniels. But I guess if that's not part of your etiquette, I guess. No, who do I want to go with? I think I also need a little bit of value and have not settled on where I want to go with that value. Give me 1 second. This is a tough slate. There's no like really obvious plays to me. I just said I want to take a value, and now I'm really questioning whether I want to go value or if I just pay up here.
With no Juju and no Noah Brown, Neil is really struggling.
Juju and Noah Brown. I do have 51.
Coker, buddy. Get ready to learn Jalen Coker. I almost like Jalen Coker, but I hardly even knew her.
Oh, I get 2 picks. I forgot that I get 2 picks here. So that does. All right. That opens things up a little bit potentially. All right. Give me 1 second. Still kind of mulling it over because I don't love any of my options right now. There are a few that I don't totally hate. You know what? I'm going to pay up just a little bit more. Man, this is a boom bust option. I think I might do it anyway. Screw it. All right. And I think I'm going to I think this is also a questionable situation at running back, but I'm going to start with the wide receiver that I want here, which is Trey Tucker against the Rams also. So I got Bowers and Trey Tucker. So let's hope that Aiden O'Connell is a legit NFL core. He looked pretty good last year, so I'm hopeful. But I love the matchup with the Rams. Trey Tucker, Brock Bowers. One of them is going to score multiple touchdowns, or they're each going to score 1 touchdown. So it'll work out. I'm not that worried.
Does it concern you at all that Tucker zeroed last week competing with Bowers and a bunch of UDFAs for targets?
That was a much tougher matchup. I don't remember what the matchup was, but I'm pretty sure it was worse. So all he needs is a better matchup with the Rams. No, Trey Tucker, he's a boom bust. So like the nature of a boom bust guy, Jake. So I should explain this to you. So boom bust guys, they go 0 1 week and then 25 the next week. So he had 0 last week. Now he's due for 25 fantasy points.
Perfect for like a 3-man format.
I'd take 25 fantasy points in a 3-man format, Jake. Come on. This is what you don't understand about this format.
I obviously don't. And Neil, you've been drafting so well. Have you considered maybe, challenging like McLovin to, some 3mans with your?
I've been thinking about it. It doesn't seem like anybody can beat me. So maybe I will. Do we know Devin Singletary's status?
Status is Wally Pip.
Love it. Love that. All right. I'm doing it then. Tyrone Tracy, come on down. He's 6,200. I think he looks like a pretty good point per dollar play, and I need a good point per dollar play because I still need to draft my quarterback. I only have 5,000 left per player, even after making. I guess that brought down the average, but I think Tyrone Tracy is a good enough point per dollar play that I will just lean in there and send it back to Jake for your 6th round pick.
It's becoming very obvious what I need. I need every starting running back to get healthy this week, and I should walk into a win.
That's true.
If that doesn't happen, things will be a little bit more interesting. I'm still a bit light on salary. One of these value quarterbacks will make it back around to me, so I'm not super pressed to take a quarterback. Tight end is rough, and I'm really tired of trusting these guys who catch passes from Deshaun Watson, but Njoku is a little tempting. Let's see. Yeah, and, wide receiver, like we said, not a lot of really obvious value there. I'm going to take, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take David Njoku. Again, it's not a play that I feel, okay, now I feel a little bit better.
That's when you know
I
me.
just slotted in my full, I was just fooling around on DraftKings. I'd slotted into my final 4 picks were going to be.
Oh, brutal.
Now everything is ruined.
It's,
well
obviously
done,
it's really gross taking a guy whose catchable target rate might be 50%, even if his ADOT's 5. But, David Njoku, without Amari Cooper, should get peppered with targets. Tight end position is pretty gross. I think especially after Bowers, things get really, really nasty. So yeah, just as a pure volume play at 4,100, he could have 10 or 12 targets here. Again, how many will be catchable? Will Cleveland even advance past the 50-yard line? We're not sure, but 10 or 12 points, I'd be pretty happy at 4,100.
I was sort of thinking of going double tight end. If you had made it back to me, I
Wow.
was maybe going to consider David Njoku because
All right, you guys are making me feel better about the pick than I did when I made it.
Yeah, no, it's a good pick. Hard to argue with that one. Jacob now has to redo his entire strategy because you took David Njoku.
I do.
Jacob has 4 picks remaining.
I feel like those GPSs when they start doing the recalculating, recalculating on the map, trying to figure it out. There's a quick 2v2 swap I can make, but I'm really trying to find a way to squeeze in a certain guy here. And I'm trying to figure out if there's any other pathway where I can do that is reasonable. I don't think so. I'm going to have to do the 2v2. So I will take, I'll take Kyron Williams here as one of my 2 picks. And then,
left.
I got the path here, and then I think I have to do this pick now because I don't think I really have a viable other alternative. So I'll take the Cleveland Browns defense here because it's the 2,500.
There you go. Yeah, now so you're down to 3,600 left per player. Now you can make that work with a tight end and wide receiver. But yeah, you're putting yourself in a spot here, and smart of you, I think, to take that defense first because I think you're more likely to have that stolen.
I know I don't have to worry about tight end. You guys have both already taken tight ends, so we'll see if I get the wide receiver I need. But yeah, Kyron. Originally, I was going to take a running back $100 more expensive than Kyron, but my plan was foiled by David Njoku's snipage. So I think Kyron probably is the second highest projecting raw running back on this slate, in my opinion. Maybe even the highest in a absolute smash spot against the Raiders. I even made Najee Harris look good.
I thought about taking Kyron earlier and didn't do it because of salary constraints and because he's so expensive. But yeah, hard. Just a great matchup there for Kyron. Doesn't have the revenge factor, of course, that Saquon Barkley has, or the remember me. I don't know what you'd call it with Saquon Barkley. But really, just a great matchup there.
Yeah.
All right. So you're down to 2. So your next 2 picks. So your next turn, you'll get to make your 2 final picks. Correct. With 3,600 left. Okay. Jake, now you are up with your 7th round pick.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a tricky spot. 4,900 remaining. I need a quarterback, wide receiver, and a defense here. There will probably still be some pretty solid. Well, let me see. Does this work? I think this would work. Okay. Yeah. I think I figured out what I want to do. I'm going to go with Drake London. And then I'll really be scrounging for salary near the end. But I mean, the workload has just been so incredible for London at 6,900. I mean, it's a very reasonable price for a guy who, if this usage continues, he has a legitimate chance to, be the overall wide receiver 1 for the rest of the season. So, yeah, and it's an awesome game environment. Really like the spot this week for London.
Yep. Can't argue with that. I thought about taking London. I am going to lock up my quarterback. I'm already correlated here. And again, 3-man, I know you don't need to correlate, but just finished out the full game stack there with Andy Dalton, with my Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, full on Washington, Carolina game stack. He's also 5,200. So he would have really helped Jake to take Andy Dalton. So I was nervous that
I got a
Jake would
better
take him.
quarterback in mind.
Doubt that. Now I have 5,000 left per player with the defense and flex. So let me take a look at the defensive pricing. All right, so if I took the Titans, then I would have 7,700 left in the flex. And I don't love that. I mean, so I don't think I need to go there. I can. Man, this is a tough slate.
It is,
because I really do. I want to pay
without knowing what the injury situations are.
Yeah, really a strange one. So if I pay down, who would I want? There is Bijan there. Gives me some options. Huh. Yeah, I don't love it. With that said, I am going to do that, I think. I'm going to pay all the way down for Bijan with my second pick and then save defense. All right. Back to Jake. You have 4,000 left per player. That includes a quarterback and a defense. Where you can. So we've both taken our quarterbacks now. So you could leave quarterback if you want to.
Yeah, I think that probably makes the most sense for me, just in case Neil was eyeing my incredible defense here. I'm going to go
Jacob.
It would be Jacob.
I'm the final pick.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess I can't really get sniped much in either direction. I'm gonna go with. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Giants defense here. Again, it's not exactly ideal, but Philadelphia's offense hasn't has been far from unbeatable. It's not. I was looking into the schematic matchup earlier today. It's not like the ideal schematic matchup for Philadelphia, like last week was with Cleveland running a ton of single high for AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, and it helps me get to the true alpha quarterback on the slate, Mitch Trubisky. Just kidding. But yeah, we'll make that pick in a bit.
You're gonna have a stack this week. You don't usually stack up your quarterback.
Well,
is that something you are intentionally doing, or is this just falling to you?
Neil, I've been learning as we go. I've been learning the 3-man strategies, and we all know the key to winning 3-mans is max correlation. So that you get that juicy ceiling. So yeah, I'm adapting, and that's how I will overcome my 0-6 record. All
right, good.
Beautiful.
Now, Jacob, you get your final 2 picks. You need a wide receiver and a tight end. You only have 3,600 left per player. Can you do it?
I think I can. Dalton Schultz and Jalen Coker will be my 2 picks.
Dalton Schultz. So tell me about the Dalton Schultz pick. Do you feel good about Dalton Schultz's role in general at this point?
So you get Nico out of the mix. He gets 8 targets last week in a low volume passing game against the Patriots. That was 1 more than Diggs, 1 fewer than Tank Dell. I think he's like a totally reasonable player, and it's the kind of spot where you take any of those other receiving weapons out of the mix, he becomes pretty viable, and it's going to be a high total game against Green Bay, where I think there's a pretty good chance CJ Stroud throws 3-4 touchdown passes in the slot, and then you just kind of hope one of those fall to Schultz. I like Njoku better, but Njoku is gone. I looked at if there was something, if I spent all the way down to Javian Sanders, what does that get me beyond Jalen Coker? And to me, not much. I didn't think there was a lot in that like low 4,000s that was really worth it, where the 2v2 would work out. So with Njoku, it would have been Njoku and Barkley instead of Schultz and Kyron, but this ends up getting it down to the dollar. And then Coker, not a prospect I knew a whole lot about. A ton of production at Holy Cross, but it's at Holy Cross, which the only notable football adjacent source I know from Holy Cross is Bill Simmons. I don't know any actual football players from Holy Cross, so who knows? But he ran 75% of the routes last week. Jonathan Mingo appears to be on the much needed road to demotion, so why not? I'll take 75% routes against the Washington Commanders.
Yep, makes sense. So there you go. Final team for Jacob, and we will review our teams once we are done with the drafts. We'll hold off on a full team review from Jacob. I'm realizing though, before we get into the reviews, we're going to run into the same thing we had last week, which was, I'm looking at like, what do I need? And last week it was the Atlanta Carolina. That's who played that last week, right? Yeah, and we all were competing for like, okay, good. Atlanta has the ball now. I'm cheering for these players, and then Ryan has these players. It's gonna be the same thing this week, where it's like every play could be either really good for me or really bad for me because we're all overlapping in the teams we have quite a bit this week, which could be fun. All right, back to Jake for your final pick, and it's a mystery. Nobody has any idea who you're taking with this final pick, Jake.
Yeah, really hard to figure it out. Obviously, Mitch Trubisky profiles as a really strong backup this week against Tennessee. You could say the same about Jameis Winston against Cincinnati. I mean, the benching risk with Deshaun, the coaches say it's not there, but Jameis might come in and drop 30 points in the second half. That said, I think I need to take a starter here, so I'm going to go with Daniel Jones at just 5,400. It's a really solid projected stack, the Daniel Jones, Malik Neighbors stack. And obviously I have, a very clear swap. If Malik Neighbors can't play, I'm going to do the alpha move. I'm going to leave 3,000 of salary on the table, and I'm going to play Darius Slayton.
Ooh,
nice.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Is that real? You're going to leave? I mean, Darius Slayton's been so good.
I would consider other options, but I think it would be pretty hilarious to do that. And like I said, Neil, what do I have to lose?
That's true. You got nothing to lose at this point.
Worst case, we just give $500 to Friends of North Augusta Animals at the end of the season, right? True.
There we go.
All right. So then my final pick, I have 2,900 left, and I've given zero thought to this. All right. So the Vikings play Detroit. I don't love the matchup. I used to feel like you could pick on Jared Goff, and it just hasn't really been the case. Green Bay at Houston, don't love that. Ooh, Miami, sort of interesting. Man, not any real obvious defenses at 2,900. All right, I know that the fantasy points defensive projections have been crushing this year, so I should take a look at those. I think that might just be how I decide on my defense.
It's a weird week for defense. Like all the good defensive matchups are going up against bad defenses this week.
Yeah. The Lions actually have the second best projection per fantasy points right now. I hate to do it against my Vikings, but I'm just gonna lean into it. I'm gonna take Chris Weck's advice here, indirect advice, and go with the Lions defense. Leave $100 on the table. So there you have it. We have finished our teams. I just want to correct one comment from chat. Choco Taco said Neil going with the zero RBs strategy. No, I drafted good running backs on this team. They might not have roles, but no, my zero RBs strategy is draft only terrible running backs who never are going to be good regardless of situation. But here I took Ray Davis and Tyrone Tracy, who are both clearly very good running backs. So this was the full-on bully running back for me, taking Ray Davis and Tyrone Tracy. All right. Let's go back to let's start with the first overall pick. And Jacob, let me give you an opportunity to give us a full review of your team. What was the vision here? Did it come together? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, so the couple value options that I really liked, the wide receiver, that I felt, hopefully if I can just get like 8 to 10 at each of those, I think that's going to be the key to giving this team a chance to survive, because I do think I'm capturing a lot of raw point ceiling on this team with 3 big spends in Jaden Daniels, Justin Jefferson, and Kyron Williams, who I think all have reasonable pathways to being the highest scoring players at their positions. And then, Ty Chandler, but a little bit of a risk there. I would also say I'm probably in 2 of the game environments, spending a lot of time in 2 game environments here, where we got Daniels, Chuba, and Coker, all from 1 game. And then we have Jefferson and Chandler from another game here. Mix in Schultz from another one of the highest total games of the slate. I think we're associating ourselves here with games that hopefully go for 50 plus.
I like it. Jake, how are you feeling about your team?
Feel pretty good. I got, 2 running backs that I really wanted in Pollard and Kenny Walker. I feel really solid about my wide receivers here. I've been trying not to go too much stars and scrubs builds. I think when you do dip into those lower price ranges, you're adding a bit of risk there. So I like that I went a bit more balanced this week. Noah Brown really being my only sort of salary saving pick, I guess Njoku as well. But at least, according to the projections, I feel really, really solid about it. Obviously that's been the case every week so far, and I haven't managed to pull through. But I also got some correlation, which, as we know from the cage match, it's the key to victory. Stacking your quarterback with a wide receiver and a 3-man.
You've got Daniel Jones. So look at all the correlation here. Daniel Jones with Malik Neighbors. Don't have any Philly bring back there, but you have the correlation there. Then you have Kenneth Walker and Drake London. You have David Njoku and Chase Brown. You've also got the Giants defense in there. So you're just leaning fully into the Giant stack here. So correlation throughout your entire lineup. Really the only uncorrelated player is Tony Pollard in the entire lineup. Are you aware, Jake, that this is a 3-man? You don't really need to correlate?
Yeah, I'm also going to enter this team in the Thunderdome as well. So,
nice.
Even if I don't ship the 3-man, I should at least take the 50K in DraftKings most expensive tournament.
Yep. And we all left. Oh, no, Jacob did not leave any salary. Me and Jake both did leave a little bit of salary on the table this week, but just $100. Not a concern there. I have Andy Dalton paired with Deontay Johnson, the bring back of Terry McLaurin. I've got a couple Raiders in Trey Tucker and Brock Bowers. I have Ray Davis and Tyrone Tracy, hoping that both of them get the starts this week. So some unknowns coming in with my team. Bijan Robinson in the flex. Love that game environment, Atlanta and Seattle. And then Detroit just taking the top projected defense that I could fit into my lineup here. I feel good about my odds of going 5 in a row here. Nobody's ever done it in the cage match. People said 4 in a row couldn't be done, and I did that. So I'm just going to continue defying the odds. I think with this lineup.
Who said that? Who was saying that?
Many people, several people were saying. Everybody was saying that it couldn't be done. Huh? Oh yeah, a lot of people were saying.
Many people were saying.
Exactly. Everybody was saying it. All right, well that does it for the cage match. Turgay, I don't have any real opinion on that trade. They all seem fine. Kind of depends on the rest of your roster, so can't really help you there. That's going to do it. But Jacob, I know you do a lot of work elsewhere. Where can people find you? Where can they find your work?
Yeah, so you can find the majority of my stuff up on Thinking About Thinking. The in-season schedule is you will get the Hitchhiker's Drive to Running Back, or Guide to Running Back, which will be the Sunday Drive column on Tuesday, which is a recap focus column. The Streamer Stock Watch on Saturday morning, which is a projecting forward-based column for the upcoming matchups. And then you'll get Dynasty Rankings updates every Thursday, and you'll get periodic Dynasty strategy pieces and stuff that'll come in occasionally during the middle of the week. You can find me on this Fantasy Points network here with Dynasty Points, along with Ryan and Tom and Lucas on every Tuesday night. We just recorded last night, so that's anywhere you can find podcasts is available right now. And then I do a Thinking About DFS show with Davis Maddock that we record almost always on Thursday mornings. It's going to be Friday morning this week due to a scheduling issue on my part, but that's where you can find me during the week.
All right. And sorry, what is the URL for Thinking About Thinking? Or it's my name. So Jakob Sanderson, Jacob with a K, .substack.com. All right, go check that out. Jacob always does great work. Tribbey, where can people find you? Where can people find your work?
Yeah, everything I do is over at fantasypoints.com. I'll be helping Scott Barrett out with his slate breakdown for the rest of the week. So keep an eye out for that. Generally comes out Saturday mornings, everything you need to know about the Week 7 DFS slate. I'll be on Cashing Points with Grant Barfield and Hilo at 7 p.m. And then afterwards, I do a really, really fun show with Ryan Heath, the Underdog Drafter Party, where we draft Battle Royale teams. We answer, anybody's questions about the slates, give our top scroll down options, talk about various contests. And while I've had quite a lack of success on the DFS cage match, I've had quite a lot of success playing Battle Royales this year. For the last 3 weeks, either me or Ryan has had a top 5 finish in some of the smaller field single entry tournaments. I've really, really been enjoying the Battle Royale format. It feels like easy mode compared to DFS.
It really does. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It is.
And I'm sure you and Ryan do great content there. So that's on Friday night. Is that at 8 Eastern?
Awesome.
8:30 Eastern, right after Cashing Points, the Underdog Drafter Party on the Fantasy Points YouTube channel.
Cool. And I'm doing work all over the place, but for the purpose of this show, the next thing I have coming out is at Fantasy Points. I'll have my Thursday night football article coming out tomorrow in a very strange Thursday night football game with Chris Olave out, Rashid Shaheed out, of course, Derek Carr out, just kind of a gross game. And then, of course, Patrick Surtain out on the other side will be an interesting one. But I'll have my Thursday Night Football article out on Fantasy Points tomorrow. And, of course, doing a show 90 minutes prior to lock on my own YouTube channel, The Flannelverse, which you can find the link in the description of this video. Thank you very much, Jacob, for joining us this week. Was a lot of fun drafting with you. Jake, fun as always. And thank you all for drafting with us. We will be back next week for the Week 8 cage match. Thanks.
What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.